Thank you. Thank you, Tim, for having me this morning. It's great to be here, and it's a really exciting time for Torian. We'll go through this presentation fairly quickly, and so we can have as much time as possible for questions. In brief, Torian, as Tim's mentioned, we are a highly active gold explorer in the Leonora region of the goldfields in WA, which that itself is really helpful for us in the sense that it's a region that is well endowed with gold. Obviously, a significant infrastructure in the area, and the best place to make a large discovery is next to some other previously large discoveries, and that's what we have. I will touch on something else which we've recently announced to the market, which is a rare earth opportunity, which we've recently uncovered about a week ago. But all in all, in general, our company's major focus and what we've been doing over the last 50 months in particular is, as an exploration company, we have not stopped exploring. We are committed to the ground, to the project that we have, and we are really excited about what we have, and we are going to continue into the future to explore and drill and provide a benefit to our shareholders, and share price appreciation hopefully will follow as we have incredible amount of news flow to follow during that exploration campaign. Move to the next slide. This is an overview of our management team. It's a really good mix of both age, experience, particularly experience across both legal, corporate, and technical experience on our board, on our exploration manager, Claudia Zegas as well, being highly experienced in the region and has already made some significant discoveries for Torian. We can go to the next slide. Thank you. Overview of our company. There's our top 10 shareholders, of course, our market cap, and you can have a look at our share price down there in the graph. So we'll talk a lot about our flagship project today. That's what we're going to be focusing on, and that is the Mount Sterling Gold Project. So it comprises about 74 kilometers of tenure. Again, just about a 25-minute, half an hour drive northwest of Leonora. It's, as you can see, it's surrounded particularly by Red 5 and in particular the King of the Hills, the 4 million ounce King of the Hills mine, which is apparently coming online later this year and will start production. In terms of Torian ourselves, we so far have uncovered 2 resources on the northern part of the project, being the Mount Sterling resource for about 102,000 ounces, and the Mount Sterling Well resource for about 16,000 ounces, which have been announced previously. The Mount Sterling resource in particular in May last year. Since then, there's been considerable amount of drilling, and we are well advanced in our 17,000 meter drill program and have received really good results so far to date. If you want to have a look at that, I won't go through the specifics of those announcements per se. And what you would find is that we continue to be consistently hitting really decent grade, which is above the average grade that we find for our neighbors and our peers in the region. So that's really promising. And that bodes really well for the global resource update, which is due around the end of this quarter, drilling permitting, and we are making really good progress on the drilling program. So we are anticipating to deliver that resource on time by the end of the quarter. We also have some really high grade historical mines as well in the Diorite region, and that is the southern part of the project. And we've uncovered a number of high grade results and high grade intercepts there as well. And we'll continue to do some exploration there too. So there's a lot of upside here. As you can see, we're some great ground, some well-established in a well-established region, and we are just getting started in developing what we believe is a district level gold project. So as I had mentioned earlier, there was an announcement last week which talked about a prospective rare earth target that Torian has. Now, obviously from a macro perspective, the rare earth market has really been heating up over the last year or so due to supply shortages, and obviously the demand for rare earth has also significantly increased with all the utilities that it does have. So what was uncovered actually was quite interesting. We have a very methodical and systematic exploration process which takes place throughout our tenure, and that is we do some we've acknowledged and we've realized that there's a high correlation between arsenic and gold in our tenure. And what we've done is we've had exploration. We've used PXRF to analyze soils for arsenic levels. And we've done that all over our tenure, and that's why we've come up with 5 or 6 new gold targets over the last year or so. So we're doing this around this area on the Arctic fault. And yeah, we found some decent arsenic values. We then followed up with some auger vacuum drilling. And when our exploration manager actually walked the ground later on, having a background in heavy rare earth, looked at the ground and realized actually it looks, just from what he could see, there was a lot more going on. So going back to the data and having a look at what the XRF numbers were when it came to yttrium as a pathfinder for rare earth, we had some significant yttrium anomalies, which warranted really warranted for us to look further into that. So what was uncovered, there was over about 1 kilometer, at least, that's since been expanded since then as we've continued to go over that data. And we're looking to now extend that over about 2 to 3 kilometers over the coming weeks. The auger vacuum drilling, which had taken place looking for gold specifically, was then submitted for multi-element assays as well, wherever we had high yttrium anomalies. So interestingly, the auger vacuum drilling was done specifically over what was the larger surface arsenic anomalies. So we are going to be following up with more auger vacuum drilling specifically over the larger yttrium anomalies. So there's a lot more to come in this story, and we're excited to see it play out. And we're anticipating the first round of results to come before the end of this month. And the exciting part is this is on the Arctic fault, which has a strike continuity of about 16 kilometers. So this rare earth discovery has really come out of nowhere and surprised us pleasantly. And subject to the results over the next week or so, we're looking forward to really uncovering what we might have, and it's really exciting for us. So we want to move to the next slide to talk about the gold exploration, which we've been doing. So we're doing it in total. We're in the middle of a 17,500 meter campaign, of which we've already drilled about 80 holes so far out of about 150. So about halfway through this current drilling campaign. So there's a number of areas that we're targeting. Obviously, the most important one here is to expand the existing Mount Sterling resource. It's currently 102,000 ounces, 20,000 of which are indicated. We're looking to increase the amount that it's indicated significantly, and also continue to expand that resource, both particularly along strike, as that remains open at the moment. The interim resource last year only included about 740 meters of strike. We've now identified that this system extends at least 1.2 kilometers. So there's a lot of work that we've been doing, and we've consistently been getting some really good results. And we're looking for a significant increase come the last quarter of this year. Later this quarter, I should say. So I want to move to the next slide. And as we move northeast of the Mount Sterling Viserion resource, which is a subvertical system, we've identified what's the Skywing system to the east, which is more a horizontal system, or flat lodes, we found. So it's small but higher grade lodes, which essentially add width to our gold system. Obviously, that's really helpful when it comes to prospective shallow open pittable mines as we look into the future. And we're continuing to see that this system, the Mount Sterling Viserion, continues to the east at Skywing, and it will continue further east as well, as we'll discuss soon, as well as further northwest. We're continuing to get some good results from Skywing, and that's really adding that oxide gold, the shallow gold, and it's adding width to what is a really important, which is really important as we uncover this system. Move on to the next slide. Hydra. So this is a target which lies about 1 or 2 kilometers northwest of Mount Sterling Viserion, along strike as well. That remains open at quite a lengthy strike length. So again, this was uncovered using that XRF and auger vacuum technique, which I discussed earlier, which we've since discovered primary gold at Hydra, and we've as part of this campaign so far. And we'll continue to follow up that as we recognize that that is a potential piece of this puzzle of not just being Mount Sterling Viserion on its own, but the extent to which it goes kilometers to the northwest and kilometers to the east as well. It's a really, really exciting piece of this puzzle that we have. The next slide, please. Tyrannus. So that sits to the east. That's that colorful area in the middle of that image, and Mount Sterling Viserion, the 102,000 ounce resource, and that we've got currently is to the west there, and that's that red line. So, and Skywing, as we discussed earlier, is in the middle. So you can see here how it all plays out. Tyrannus, importantly, lies on the Ursus fault. It's a highly prolific fault, and there's just further south of that position of Tyrannus along that fault line, we've got the, Red 5 have a couple of significant deposits, significant resources, gold resources sitting there along that fault as well. So at Tyrannus, again, we've discovered primary gold at a pretty decent grade, again, a little bit higher than the average of our region. So this really is a really exciting picture. And yes, we're looking at it now as individual targets, but I would not be surprised if down the line, this all merges into something really, really significant as one large system. And Sterling Well is again to the southwest of Sterling Viserion. That it has an existing resource of about 16,000 ounces. We did a drilling campaign there last year where gold was identified beyond the boundaries of the current resource, both at strike and at depth. We're going to be following up drilling there as part of this campaign as we look to increase the resource there, as that adds to our global resource altogether. And Diorite, as I described earlier, that's that really high-grade historical mine, or many historical mines down to the south of Mount Sterling. Again, there we've had some significant discoveries, particularly at the unexpected mine, as it's called. As you can see some of the numbers there on the screen. And again, as part of this program, we're going to be following up some additional holes there. So overall, as part of our 17,500 meter program, so far we've drilled about 75 holes, of which 50 to 60 have been reported on. We still have about 20 holes or so that have yet to be reported on, in addition to 50 that's yet to be drilled. And that will all continuously be announced over the coming months as we head towards our resource, and as we continue to drill beyond that, as we continue to grow the company system. This slide again discusses that exploration strategy, which I talked about earlier. It's available on our website, available through Share Cafe as well, if you want to look into that deeper. That concludes the presentation. If we have time for one or two questions, Tim.
We do, thanks, Peretz. It appears you're kind of spoilt for choice, and you've spoken about an increase in drilling activity. So what can we expect in terms of meterage and number of holes drilled? And you know, you got AV drilling, which is kind of the shallow drilling, which kind of helps drill through soil cover, and it's almost like soil sampling, against the kind of heavier RC drilling, which helps you find a resource. So how do you balance out that kind of AV drilling program when it looks like you've got plenty of opportunities for your RC drilling?
Sure. So the auger vacuum drill, at the moment, we're going to have, well, starting, I think, early next week, we'll have 3 RC rigs on site. And we have an auger vacuum rig, which is constantly there about 2 or 3 weeks of every month. The AV rig is more for target generation. So it drills until the hard rock. And then we sample the last meter, or wherever we have a significant arsenic anomaly, we look at sampling that, or we look at sending that off for assays. The RC drilling is obviously then used to follow up on what the work, the auger vacuum drilling. So that way, our RC drilling is a lot more targeted, and we're able to maximize that. Obviously, it's a lot more expensive than auger vacuum drilling. We want to make sure that when we're putting those RC holes in the ground, we're doing that in the most cost-effective and getting the biggest bang for our buck. In terms of the program, we're halfway through a 17,500 meter program at the moment. And those holes that I mentioned, those are all RC holes. Auger vacuum is sitting on top of that.
And time for 2 more, actually. Were you happy with the rate at which you added ounces over the last 12 months? Can we expect the new drilling program to be focused on some of the known high-grade zones? Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Sure. So we had our interim resource earlier last year, and then it's back in, I think it came out in May. Since then, there was more results that came out of that system, and we've had continuously positive results throughout this program. And as I said, we're looking to increase ounces. What that final number is, I don't have a crystal ball. but it's looking good. The average grade is looking good. The fact that we'll be able to increase the confidence of the resource, and it is something which we're very confident about, mind the pun. And moving forward, we're really excited about what we have. We've also done a lot of work on target generation. When we had that resource estimate in May last year, we didn't really have any other targets aside for where we had the resource. Since that, we spent quite a bit of time on target generation. So not only are we looking at increasing our resource, but there's a number of other targets in close proximity, which may all merge into one. But now we've done a lot of that grunt work, which is not as sexy per se to the market, but that's enabled us now to use that RC drill and really develop our ground moving forward.
And Peretz, finally, just quickly, your cash position. I know you have some options expiring, 2 cent options. I think your stock's 3.5 cents. 2 cent options expiring at the beginning of February. Can you give us an update on your cash position?
Sure. So we're sitting at about $1.5 million in cash at the moment. And we have about $5 million worth of options that are going to be expiring in the beginning of February. Our share price, as you mentioned, is about 3.5 cents. Those options are 2 cents. So we anticipate the majority of those options will be exercised, and that will obviously help our cash balance significantly moving forward.